There we go. So, first one from Yahoo News. Sorry we haven't posted in like 2 weeks. I've been sick and I haven't had a voice much. All right. Yahoo News. Student loans to get taken over by Treasury from Education Department as Trump dismantles the latter. Yeah, so Trump is still dismantling the Department of Education. All right. The U.S. Department of the Treasury is getting ready to handle some student loan cases from while President Donald Trump dismantles the U.S. Department of Education. On Thursday, both agencies came to an agreement allowing the Treasury Department, to take over loans that are overdue by months. According to the Associated Press, the default loans from student borrowers currently amount to $180 billion. For now, the Treasury Department will only manage some student loans. Eventually, the department is expected to take over all default loans. The agreement also states that the Treasury Department will, quote, assume operational responsibility, end quote, of non defaulted loans at some point. This marks a significant change for the Education Department, which has managed student loan programs since it was founded in the late 1970s. What are critics saying about the Treasury Department handling student loans? Opponents of the controversial move say the Education Department is legally required to handle student loans, whatever, likely cause confusion for borrowers. Quote, the Department of Education has issued a dizzying series of rule changes that make it harder for borrowers to figure out what their options are on the federal student loans. Fair. Taylor told the Associated Press, devastating effect on the families. Yeah. How was the Trump administration justifying the change for student borrowers? The Trump administration says it's about dismantling the agency by an agency run by liberals, as, as the Associated Press reported. Educational Secretary Linda McMahon said the agreement, quote, marks an intentional and historic step towards breaking up the federal education bureaucracy and dramatically improving the administration of federal student aid programs, unquote. McMahon spoke about the administration's plan during her Senate confirmation hearing. According to the Associated Press, McMahon said that the Treasury is a quote natural unquote place for managing student loans. Student borrowers are considered to be in default when their loans are overdue by over 270 days. About 9.2 million Americans who are currently in default live in fear of facing serious consequences. They may see a decline in their credit scores, or they may have their Social Security benefits withheld. I did a little more digging. Besides that, let's see. So, nearly 20% of all people with student loan debts are in default. And so, out of all the ones that are in debt, 20% of them are in default. That was, so we said here give me a second. 9 million Americans are currently in default. And I believe the total number of, what's it called? People essentially with student loan debt period, I think it was like 43, something like that. So another thing some other statistics I was looking up was about 30 to 40% of college students drop out within the span of like their first like 2 to 4 years. um I mean, this is nothing new. Like, the Trump administration has been talking about this the entire, like, since before he took office. I know before, like, during Biden's administration, and like during the entirety of Biden's administration, there was talking about like student loan forgiveness, which, as someone with student loans, I wasn't in favor of it, but I'll be honest, if it came my way, I wouldn't have turned it down. But because like the concept of
Mm-hmm.
like it's essentially the taxpayers that are paying for the college loans. If the with the whole Joe Biden's student forgiveness thing, taxpayers
Yep.
and corporations would be paying that off, and I don't think that's fair. But I'm not the president. Trump ran on the policy that you're going to be paying back your loans, which if you take out a loan, you should be paying it back. Now, what makes there's a couple things, a couple angles I've been thinking about this on. One, we're essentially back in a war with Iran. We're in a war with Iran. We need money. The Trump administration recently asked for like $800 billion.
200 billion.
Oh yeah, it was a big
Oh,
number. I could be wrong. I'd have to look it
I think it
up.
was $200 billion.
Oh, $200 billion. Okay, yeah, for that, and they're asking that for Congress, and I think now, granted, they've been planning this the whole time, but this might have been part of the plan. But they want more money heading their way, so they're gonna have, be like, hey, you need to start paying us money. That's a form of, I guess, stream of revenue that the government would be taking advantage. Why is it taking advantage? We took out the loans, but now the money's heading to them. Like again, you should be paying back your loans, but I have some statistics, not statistics, but like loans are defaulting. We've already stated in previous episodes that people are going like those payday loan companies to get payment, pay for their rent. Prices are going up, wages aren't keeping up with those prices. It's an all-around bad time, and with the midterms coming up.
Mhm.
Now, this is not economic view. We're gonna get a little politicky here for a hot second. This is not gonna bode well. You know what I mean? Like, at least I don't think so. I could be wrong, but it's like most people are going to college. That's kind of the system we've created. Is that we've taught people to be like, hey, you need to go to college if you want to, get a good job. And as I stated before, but 30 to 40% of them are dropping out. So they're dropping out and still having those loans. 20% of those people are in default of those loans. If you're in default, you probably didn't have enough, weren't making enough to justify paying it, which you gotta pay it. Like
Yeah.
it comes with the turf of the loan, but how do I put this? How do I put this? I again we've talked about this. I don't disqualify the importance of a secondary education, but I've said it before. I think there's too much of an emphasis on just getting a secondary education without thinking through it. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there? Like again, we talked about like that Batman degree or Batman classes from, I want to say like Montana or Colorado, one of those universities. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a lot we've put so much emphasis on making, well, not making, like I don't want to say tricking either because again it's important, but basic,
Convincing.
yeah, convincing kids that you need to go to college. You have to go to college to have a non struggling life. I mean that's how it was when I was growing up. It's like you want to live comfortably, medium to medium high incomes. Is you need to go to college. Uh, so, but again, I think there's too many people going to college and too many people going for colleges for things that you didn't need college degrees for. So now people are taking out. Now, granted, when I was in college, it was like, well, when I did the math, I was gonna come out with like $80,000 in debt if I just did normal 4 years. I recently looked at a college near me, a university, not just a college, a university near me. It was like 20,000 a semester. I was going for like 10,000 a semester. Now it's like 20,000 a semester. So we're essentially getting like double the amount. It's not even uncommon. I've read statistics where it's like $400,000 is what people are walking out of with college degrees. And the problem is, I don't know if most jobs would let you live comfortably while still paying that off without the interest constantly packing on.
Yeah.
So like that again, like while yes you took out the loan, I don't entirely blame a generation of kids who are told essentially from the beginning you need to go to college to live good life. So we essentially, now granted, if I want to get a little conspiratorial here, um, I could say that college has learned that they are a business, and in order to make more money, they need more people. So tell a bunch of kids to go to college to make more money, and then you've essentially supplied yourself a generous income.
Yep.
If I
Especially
got
when it's guaranteed through federal loans.
yeah, especially through federal loans. So you'll get the money from them, government gets their cut, and it's a steady supply of income. So
Yeah,
so
it's
I
it.
yeah, go go.
I agree. Student loans are a rough problem because on the one hand, like we want an educated society with smart people who know a lot of things, and the workforce is definitely moving in the direction of a college degree being a requirement and a master's slowly sort of taking the place of what a college degree was maybe like 30, 40 years ago. Um, and like there is some pressure to like adjust to that as a civilization. So it's like, do we make college free? Do we like make specific kinds of schooling free? Do we like there's that angle, and then there's also the angle of like, I agree. There's a lot of pressure for a lot of people to go to college, get a job, go to college, get a degree, and you'll pay it off because you'll get a good job. You pay it off, and then 2008 happened, COVID happened, like right now is happening, and businesses are playing even tighter with their pocketbooks. And they're like, well, if it's between the 36-year-old, 40-something-year-old guy who's been in the industry forever and proven his worth of the 20-something new hire who just got out of ChatGPT University, uh, who do I really want on my team? It's like, well, fuck me then. Why am I spending this much money to be here? Um,
Yeah.
and also, like, university costs have gone up. It's like 4,000% or some absurd number. Like, it's the cost has non-linearly scaled with inflation, and it hasn't scaled with demand either. Um, because again, a big influencing factor is that like student loan payments are subsidized through the federal government, which means that like they are going to get their money regardless. They understand the position in the market there, and they know that everyone's going to go there. They're going to get the loans, and just going to live in debt for a really long period of time. And it's not the college's job to collect, right? They can't turn students away for like financial repayment likelihood. And now we sort of hit maybe not like a critical mass, but like that same kind of like event horizon where it's like colleges have built so much of their infrastructure around this guaranteed cash stream, this crazy high guaranteed cash stream, right? The executives or what are they called in like colleges, like the deans and the presidents and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Their paychecks are reliant on it. The sports teams are reliant on it, which are an entire industry all of their own. Like there's so much of the system that is now built around making sure you get your guaranteed cash money and noping out with it, that like to turn around now and be like, actually, yeah, you're gonna have to work on like about a tenth of this income. And like all the contractors who work for colleges and all the other stuff, like it's I think we've hit a point maybe where we've gone past that event horizon where it's like there kind of isn't a turning back without like basically mass sacrificing or
Mm-hmm.
like colleges and like, hey, we hate to break it to you, but like, yeah, given how new enrollment rules work, there are no federally subsidized loans, and you have to get a loan from a bank, and all this other stuff. And hey, yeah, only colleges with large enough endowments are now basically around, and like state schools, which maybe were like made like public, so yeah, you could go get like for example, like University of Louisville might go under, but University of Kentucky might survive because it's a state school, like University of Michigan, University of Ohio. But then non-state schools would like small private schools, like non-Ivy League schools with smaller endowments, like IU and Notre Dame might survive in Indiana, but maybe nothing else. Hanover might not. There's another one that's sort of in the Earlham, like these smaller private schools or like smaller accredited universities, like University of Indianapolis. They might all go under because it's like, listen, their structure was built on a sort of like a bad system, and the bad system is gone now, and we have to just figure it out and goodbye. Um, so there's that, and that's sort of like the gracious angle, and then there's like kind of the more critical angle where it's like, listen, there's a lot of stuff. You're right. college students earn about $1 million more than uh, your standard person who goes straight into the workforce after high school, including like all of your blue collar, underwater welder, multimillionaire people. Like it's just
Yeah.
they're not a large portion of the population. They don't really skew the data that much, or they don't affect the data basically at all. Like, and I think part of this is like there's this Americans are I wouldn't say they're a very like high bravado people. Like we're not, you know, we're not a Latinate country like Spain or Mexico, where like that sort of bravado is like, where like very outward bravado is normalized. But like in America, it's not. Everyone kind of wants to believe that they are special and they are important and they are kind of the uh, sort of ironically, I think that there's a leftist critique that does ring true in a lot of cases, which is like there's a lot of Americans who just genuinely believe they're like temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and that like their big break is just around the corner. Their big idea, the next big, it's like you're just not, dude. You're Joe Schmo from like middle of nowhere, Missouri. You're right. There's a technically non-zero chance that you are somebody, but you went to community college or you went to some state school, you majored in marketing, you went to a satellite of some state school and you majored in marketing, and you think that it's like, well, I made and you can kind of justify it to yourself. It's like, well, yeah, I did it because it was cheaper, and I did it because I got XYZ and I got ABC, and now I really get to make my big breakout. And it's like, honestly, this person probably would have been happier welding. And on top of that, I think my most elitist take on this is like, I think there's a lot of people who've I'm not against the American dream, but I think there's a lot of people who should have reasonably been able to live out that dream without sort of this delusion that they're some ultra exceptional, very intelligent person. Like intelligence has become like a very important part of who you are in America, in a way that it just
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was necessarily in the past. Like you didn't need to be smart and knowledgeable. You could just be like good at a thing and like do the thing, and like you'd make like enough of a happy enough living off of that. And then now it's just become like intelligence is like the primary currency in the United States. But whether that's socially or whether that's like economically, especially like your smarts are what make you, at least in the white collar economy, which is obviously the most profitable sector, and or at least the perception of your smarts, maybe not the actual smarts, right? Because you can kind of coast. Let's say you got into an Ivy League because your parents are rich, you can kind of coast off of that.
Yeah.
Um, I know people who've been to like nice high end private schools and have siblings that are going to expensive like Princeton and Yale and stuff, and I've talked with those people. I've been in the same rooms with them. Okay, it's embarrassing that some of that stuff is. I look at them I've been on some of the campuses. I've talked with some of the people, and I'm like, really, this is what I missed out on. Like, full disclosure, I didn't go to an Ivy League, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can hang with these people no problem. Like, this is the special creme de la creme. And you know what? Maybe I'm too stupid. Maybe I'm missing something. It's possible, but like it's the perception of the prestige is sort of what matters. Is what I'm trying to say. So maybe less intelligence itself, and more perception of intelligence. What can you prestige your way into to look smart? But
Yeah.
I think in the past it was just easier. And this could be some movement of the economy and whatnot. But I also think a lot of people who've worked white collar jobs know that like, dude, some of these are like fake email jobs where you do not need a college degree to do this. You don't need a degree in marketing to be in the marketing department. You don't need a degree in sales to be in the sales department. These are superfluous degrees that kind of help, but like ultimately, it should kind of a lot of companies I think should probably follow the military model, and I think they did in the past, and I think that's what changed, where it's like you get hired on out of high school maybe, and you're in the sales department, and as part of that, they'll maybe you get paid 40 grand a year, which is significantly less than like what a graduate college student should anticipate making, um, or not graduate college student, like someone who's graduated college
Mm-hmm.
or at like a university. Like you're making 30, 40 grand a year, which is, I guess, in this economy, really not a lot. Um, but the company's like, hey, instead of doing some like stupid like in-house training thing, which they should be doing, why don't you just do the military thing? Put them through college. Hey, we work with XYZ state school or XYZ, university. We'll put you through their sales program as you work here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's what the military does, right? They give you a job, they give you pay, housing, food, blah blah blah, and they put you through college. I think, and obviously with the cost of tuition now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But like that sort of idea of like so much of this, so much of what people are going to school for could have been like a 6 week training course, less
Yeah.
than. Could have been like a 2 week training course or like a 6 week, apprenticeship period of, hey, you're hired on, but for the first 6 weeks, you're not really going to be doing much. You're just going to be apprenticing this person who does it this way, and they're going to teach you. And after that, we're going to take the reins off, or we're going to take off the training wheels, and you're going to go for it. And if you fail, you fail. See ya. Um, I think that's probably just the model that kind of did exist in the past. Um, and there was a little bit more probably of a sink or swim access, ab, a sink or swim um, angle to it. But I said access. I don't think that's the right word. There's sort of a sink or swim angle to it, where it's like, you got in, and if you failed, you failed. But now companies have become so risk averse. Risk aversion on some level makes sense, but I think to totally go off topic here, 1946, Ford versus Dodge. It's the case that sort of decided how a lot of companies move today. The Ford brothers sued, or not the Ford, the Dodge brothers sued Ford. They were shareholders in the Ford Motor Company, and they were suing because they didn't like that Ford was redirecting a ton of its profits, like a ton, so much of its profits towards research and development, new factory creation, and employee pay. They, as shareholders, were like, "Hey, why am I last on the payroll? Right? Why do I only get the little bit left over that you didn't feel like spending? Because you can spend an infinite amount on research and development.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's an unlimited budget. So I don't like that I'm having to, eat up the scraps of what you choose to throw at us. No, your obligation is to us, the shareholders first. We get paid out first before you invest in the company. We get paid out first. And they won. And it's sort of the decisive case. And I think sort of dovetailing off of that is where we're at right now with why corporations are so risk averse, right? You just had uh, in the past 10 years, or the past 20 years, you've had a crazy amount of insane economic shocks. Um, and if you're a company, it's hard to justify if you have to pay out your investors first, taking on the big risk that is every time you hire someone, it's a college new hire. Um, but yeah, uh, going back to the college payment stuff, like the paying your college loans, I think there is an element of personal responsibility, like you said, where it's like if you. Oh yeah, that was sort of the original point I was making. Sorry, I totally derailed myself.
All good.
Um,
All good.
the specific bit where it's like people put too much stock into needing, like they feel, the economy and people, which is effectively the same thing. Put too much stock into how smart you are, how intelligent you are. How smart can you come off? How much can you show your smarts? What degrees do you have? Where did you get those degrees? In what department? How did you, blah. Like, and in the past, it wasn't as much like that. And I think people could recognize in the past, to some degree, to some greater degree than now, that, buddy, college just isn't for you. You're just not cut out for it. Like this isn't your calling. But there's prestige to it, and there's social value, and especially post social media. Um, Unless you're like, oh, I'm a blue collar underwater welder, and I make $40 million a picosecond, and because I'm risking my life. Like, unless you can make unless you can manage to mine some prestige out of that, it really is just go to college. It really is like, dude, you're gonna be a nobody. You're gonna be a fucking nobody. And we do. I think in America we do. For some valid reasons and for many invalid reasons, we do talk down on like the trades and doing this type of work. Um, because maybe the real indicator here that we're seeing, and well, I still agree there's a personal responsibility angle. I don't think people should just be taking out loans that they are indifferent as to their capacity to repay. Because I think that's because I've seen that a lot, which I'm sure you have too. Is people just being like, well, I'm never going to pay it back, so what does it matter? It's like, well, that's not a good perspective to have, or it's
Yeah.
impossible to pay back, so it effectively doesn't exist. Um, and looking at like it, if people think, regardless of the truth, if people think that the only way to sort of live out that American dream, to have what your parents have, is to go to college, even if your dad was just like a salesman who he went in the front door, gave him a firm handshake, and they gave him a fair shot at it. You know, ironically, I was about to say the old college try, but like they gave him a fair shot, right? He walked into the Ford factory or the sales department of some local company that ended up getting moderately big, and he made a good living just because they were more um, uh, they're just more willing to hire, right? It was just a different time. And then you're a kid and you're looking at you're parenting your kid and you're looking at the statistics like, damn, they'll never have what I have unless they go to college. If you're that kid, you grow up thinking, damn, I'll never have what they had unless I go to college. And if you get a
Yeah.
whole generation of people who are thinking like that, regardless of its validity, yeah, it kind of makes no surprise that they're willing to go, you know what, I'm going to make this incredibly financially stupid decision because otherwise, fuck, I'm downwardly mobile and it's so over if I do worse than my parents. But I do think there's an element of sometimes I've met people in college who frankly should not be there. I've met people in the business school of a small like satellite school like and I'm like and it was drowning for them. It was like intellectually drowning for them. And like you should just be in the workforce. You should
Yeah.
just be working. And again, like maybe I'm being elitist, maybe I'm being whatever. Um, but yeah, I think people put less people should be going to college because I don't think college. I think the American economy over focuses on the college degree as an indicator. But I also have to recognize that like it is an indicator. Like you kind of
Mm-hmm.
can't fight that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It's just I think my main issue right now is that like I mean obviously you took out loans. You gotta pay it back. There's as far as I know, there's not a lot of loans on this earth where the people go, well, you don't have to pay this back. So it's gotta be back. But I think my problem is one, the price of university and college secondary education is getting way out of hand. I'm not saying that the education isn't there or important, but like I can't imagine calculus from Harvard is that much different from calculus from the University of Kentucky versus calculus from Northern Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like at least
yeah.
on
I
a
mean, you would
basic
hope,
level,
but
you would hope, yeah, and for sure, you'd like to imagine that the Harvard University people are they might like their job a bit more, but besides specific fields, this is gonna sound really stupid. I understand that. I watched an anime one time, and they were talking about going to college, and this guy was complaining about his friend going to a different college, and now this might be a bias because I watched this anime when I was like 8, but the dude said he said all or most colleges are the same. Some are just more expensive than others. And as someone who's went to multiple different universities, yeah, that's basically it. I can't like calculus hasn't advanced that much in my lifetime, but you're going to the I mean, granted for sure Harvard, Yale, like they have that as you said that prestigious title.
the
Tech, yeah, the
prestige.
prestige tech to it for sure. But when it comes to like, I would even say like we say like University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, University of Cincinnati, but they're just universities because they're a combination of colleges. Like it's
Yeah.
just like the College of like Arts and Mathematics, stuff like this, and it's just all labeled under university. And I think that's the problem is that they combine these different colleges and kind of like those what were those loans called that caused the 2008 recession? What would they call them?
Oh,
Those
subprime mortgage loans.
yeah, subprime mortgage loans. They got a bunch of combinations of A, AA, and AAA combined together and labeled them all as AAA and price them all as AAA.
Yeah.
So I think that's one problem. Another problem is that, like, again, I do believe the education's important, but I don't think someone who got, like, let's say, like, we'll just take the example now, like, let's average out $300,000 of college debt. With the way, like, the prices, not prices, the way, like, wages are increasing slowly, prices are going up faster than wages are can keep up with it. That person might spend the rest of their life, because ideally, not granted, this is based when I was growing up, you're going to spend the next 10, 20 years paying it off. So you're going to spend from your 20s to your 40s paying off your student loans. Then from, like, your 40s and 60s, you're going to build, that's where you build your wealth or whatever. And then from 60 to 80, that's where you coast off that. That's how it was kind of described to me. So it kind of makes sense because it's broken up in the 20s. But with the way things are, because compounding interest, the more money you owe, the more interest you have to pay off. So prices are going up, interest going up, the amount you owe is going up, but your wages, not granted, you have a degree, theoretically. In theory, you can demand a bigger wage, for sure. But, you know what I mean? That you're going to have to pay more. Ideally, you go to college to make more money, but now you have to, all that extra money you could have been making for a, theoretically a better life is now being paid towards a higher interest rate. That's my issue with it all. Is that, again, ideally you go to college to better your life. Now, granted, I agree. I would say, I'd probably agree with this statistic. I think 40% of people in college probably should not be in college. And whatever they're going for probably doesn't need a $400,000 degree from a average university. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, now this is my own bias because I do like the program. There's a program called Coursera, which I enjoy, which is basically just like college-esque courses, but you don't have to take electives. You don't have to take, certain things, like, which is what I think, what, at least in my mind, I could absolutely be wrong, is the problem with modern society is that, like, if my dad was a farmer, but okay, we're talking like 100 years ago. If my dad was a farmer, I was probably going to be a farmer. My best scenario would be going to get a higher education for farming so I can improve upon what my dad did. I think the problem is we have a lot of people who their parents were blue collar workers and they told them to, get a degree. That way you don't have to do what I do because I hate underwater welding. So then we have a bunch of people going for degrees that nobody needs degrees for, because as you stated, a lot of these people aren't. Now I'm trying not to be mean. 40% of these people are not cut out for college, but they tried and now they've got debt. And damn, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so it's like,
Most people don't need degrees. It's crazy that we pressure people into them. It's crazy that a lot of people who are even ostensibly adults, even if they're young adults, um, uh, get like still kind of sucked into it. Where it's like, yeah, I understand on some level, but then also it's like, yeah,
yeah, so,
you're an adult.
yeah,
Two, also you're an adult whose entire upbringing has been centered, academic upbringing has been centered around achieving this thing. Also, like, it's kind of a everyone's to blame.
oh,
We got
oh,
here because everyone's at fault.
yeah. I remember. I didn't write it down. I don't know why I didn't write it down. So I, I was looking at this. I read somewhere that for defaulters, they're going. I wonder why they didn't come up in the article. I could have swore I read it from this article, but it didn't come up. That for defaulters who don't pay, they will garnish your wages up to 15%. I don't know if that's like their cap, but the number said 15% of your take home pay essentially. Um, so I can't believe I forgot about this. Wages aren't going up. more wages are staying relatively the same, slowly going up. Prices are going up. We're about to get into a war with Iran, which is going to make prices of everything else go up because resources have to be sent to the military instead of the people. And then now people are going to have less money because you're either going to pay back your loans or you're going to get they're going to garnish your wages. So that's where I was going with this. I don't know why I didn't. So there's going to be less money in the market, which means I think the economy might take a hit, especially when it comes to the stock market, because people aren't going to be able to spend as much money on products because they are. Now, granted, you took out the loan, you need to pay back the loan, but now people are. They've lived off the past 5 years, especially under the Joe Biden presidency, of like, oh, well, student loan forgiveness, and people's loans, a handful of people's loans did get forgiven, if I'm not mistaken. But most people are like, well, I can stop paying back my loans because I don't need it. Now people have gotten comfortable with how much they make. Now times are getting harder, and then now they're going to be forced to put money towards the loans that you should have been putting towards to begin with. But that's what I was going to go with that. I think the market's going to take a good hit because, again, what's called 20% of people with student loans. So out of everyone who decided they're going to go to college and they have loans debt, 20% of them are default. That means 20% of the market is going to lose 15% of their paychecks twice a month or every week, depending on how they get paid. That's going to hurt because it's like what 40. I said this earlier, like 43 million people have student loan debt.
Yeah.
That's so 9 point whatever million people are about to lose 15% of their paycheck because that's the defaulters. And then the other, I think the other 80% are going to have to start paying. Or they'll be responsible, but they're still going to be losing a portion of their paychecks, which is kind of going to help us get into the next segment. Oh my God, I haven't been keeping time. Give me a second. And that's going to get us to our next segment when it comes to oil, especially now. This one comes from News Wave, whatever. More than 20 nations back safe passage in Strait Hormuz. Over 20 countries pledged support for safe navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, condemning Iran's attacks and calling for the adherence to international law. More than 20 countries. Why would you state that twice? In a joint statement, the leaders of 22 nations condemned recent attacks by Iran on unarmed commercial vessels and civilian infrastructure. The countries include United Arab Emirates, Bahrain,
United Arab Emirates.
Emirates. Ah, thank you. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Canada, and Australia. Quote, we express our readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the strait, unquote, the statement read. The nations also call on Iran to cease its threats and attempts to block the strategic waterway. They demand compliance with United Nations Security Council Resolution 2817. Quote, freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle of international law, unquote, the statement emphasized. The countries called for an immediate moratorium on attacks on civilian oil and gas installations. I think they did attack like an unarmed vessel. I could be wrong. Don't quote me. Just scrolling through X. They welcomed the International Energy Alliance decision to authorize a release of strategic petroleum reserves. The statement added that steps would be taken to stabilize energy markets, including working to increase output. Quote, maritime security and freedom of navigation benefits all countries, unquote, it concluded. Okay, so there's a couple things that the article didn't state. Now, before, I want to say like last week, obviously we've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz for a couple weeks now. And about 20% of the world's energy comes through there, and it's being halted. President Trump, he's already sending our military there to try to, and there's like an island nearby or something like that, to try to
Hmm.
help get ships through. Trump called on other countries, I believe in NATO, or he could have just called on what we consider close allies. I'm going to call out NATO. Be like, hey, we're going to need help with, making sure Iran doesn't attack our ships. And at the time, if a random TikTok is to believe, well, a couple random TikToks are to be believed, most, if not all countries were like, nah, we're not going to do that. But they told, if I'm not mistaken, they told Trump in secret, and then Trump, I think it's funny. Like a handful of days ago, was like, I called it, and if we pay NATO and we give countries some of our military stuff, and in times of need they wouldn't help us. So and I think that was strategic because he kind of just called it out. Granted, I don't think I'm very anti, not really very anti-war. I do believe there's some instances where we might need to do something, but I kind of like it was like we pay NATO to be part of here, and NATO won't help us. You know what I mean? So I think this is kind of a bunch of countries being like, no, no, we'll help. We promise we will. Now, again, that's 20 countries. Um, and I think how was gonna put this? How am I gonna put this? Me personally, I find it weird that they weren't going to help in the first place. We're part of NATO, fine, whatever. They don't want to be involved in military action, but they would absolutely involve our military that's like stationed there to be a part of their actions. A little hypocritical, but we are the greatest country in the world.
Hmm.
Second of all, that's like, again, we say that's 20% of the world's oil. Like, I get like not wanting to go to war, but I'm not trying to be like Nick Fuentes, where it's like, like strength and numbers, we need to overpower them. But to an extent, if you have most of the world being like, hey, stop bombing our ships, in theory, Iran
Yeah.
would be like, well, we probably should stop bombing their ships because they might start attacking us. You know what I mean? Like the might of the world versus the might of Iran.
Yeah.
Um, again, pretty anti-war, but here's my issue with all this: is like, now granted, I will at least applaud President Trump for being like calling out like, hey, we pay, they're not helping, even though they more or less signed a contract saying we would help. I think the problem is now again, pretty anti-war, pretty anti-intervention, but if we're going to do something such as, you know, bombing a government so that they will use our dollar, we can't be half-assing it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? We either not intervene at all and try to find our own way, which I thought we were probably going to try to do with, Venezuela when we took our oil refineries or whatever back from there. But it just seems like they're playing like they're playing with Iran in a way. You know what I mean? Like it seems like, yeah, we bombed your government and your people in power, and we're not gonna really do anything while you cut off 20% of the world's oil, essentially world's energy, and you know what I mean. It's like it's either we either got to commit to it or we're not. Now, granted, it does seem like we're kind of committing to it by calling out other countries in NATO, and they've, as stated in the article, they will be sending their own forces to kind of monitor what's going on. But now granted, I don't think Trump was like, I'm not going to state that Trump was thinking about this, but when I was doing some research for this was that like this is called well, this is an example of economy of scale. You ever heard of the it's like an essay called "I Am Pencil"?
Yes.
Okay, where essentially like to make a pencil, it takes like 8 countries working together. Well,
Yep.
I don't think it requires it, but modern day pencils require need have like 8 countries working together.
Yep.
I think this is an example of that. I'm not saying Trump was thinking about this, but in order for the world to get 20% of its energy back, it needs the world to help out. You know what I mean? Like, we rely on this energy. We should all be trying to be like, hey, stop attacking civilians, or we're gonna do something. You know what I mean? Show of force kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and the problem is, like, with the whole half-assing thing, it's either we're gonna stay out of it or really have to commit to it. Is that people are feeling it now? Like, I'm looking at gas prices. It's March. I don't normally see $3 to $4 gas prices till like May. Generally, I'm seeing it now. Like, normally, like $30 will get me through a week and a half. $30 gets me half a week right now. So, and again, if we're going to get a little political on this, this is not going to bode well for the midterms. So it's either something needs to be committed now, or we need to back up and figure out what we're going to do with Venezuela.
Hmm. No, I agree.
Sweet, wonderful. So
Yeah, sorry, I've just got nothing else to add.
all good. So I got some other
pretty
notes
good
here.
comprehensive.
I think so oil prices are going up because I took a note here. Because the price of elasticity the price of elasticity for energy is quite low in the short term, meaning consumers cannot easily find substitutes or reduce usage immediately. This is a tax that hits everyone. That's a note I took, which, it makes sense. World's 20% of the world's energy goes up in price. I can't just switch to corn oil and call it a day. That's another thing I brought up. I see people on like TikTok and Facebook, and they brought up like you like oil, like gas companies are ripping you off because they're charging you like $4 a gallon for oil or whatever that they bought like 6 months ago. And service level, yeah, that makes sense. The problem is they're still buying oil. Prices are up now because they're still buying oil now. Because it's not like, again, 20% of the world's energy just got cut off. That the demand for that energy is still here. Supply of that energy has gone down 20%. That is economics 101. Low supply, high demand equals higher prices. Yes, you're not going to see this oil that they're buying now for 4 to 6 months, but they're paying for it now. So they theoretically need the extra money. They're probably wealthy people, but that's beside the point. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
This shock can trigger, quote, cost push inflation, unquote, where external forces push up the cost of production and transportation across the entire economy, leading to a general rise in prices. We've talked about that plenty, and I've been sick for 2 weeks. Prices of everything is going to go up because the price of gasoline's going up. That means transportation's going to go up. Transportation goes up. Everything that's being transported has to go up to accommodate for the increased price of said transportation, because those prices went up means you're gonna have to pay more of it. What happens when you gotta pay more of it? Means you gotta buy less of it, or you gotta find substitutes. Problem is, substitutes also need to be transported. Those will go up, and on top of that, on recent reports, 50% of people's wages are about to be garnished for student loans. I think we're gonna hit a struggle bus soon. Now, probably not this segment I was thinking this was gonna go into, but if we're gonna get into politics here, I can absolutely be wrong. I will fully accept I can be wrong. But at least growing up, and with like the amount of like economics, at least from the stuff I've studied, When it comes to economics, separating based on Democratic and Republicans, Democrats are very much so just fix the problem now, we'll deal with the consequences later. Essentially, just keep fixing it now, would kick the can down the road. Great example was the student loan forgiveness stuff. We'll tell people like, hey, forgive your student loans, and for a lot of people, student loans were forgiven. Kicking the can down the road, now it's been 5 years, well, people are about to have their wages garnished because the government told them they didn't have to pay back their student loans. Stuff like that. Another example is during the Bill Clinton administration, the whole thing when it comes to buying a house, like you would need like 20% down before they would even consider giving you the loan. Well, during the Bill Clinton administration, they made it so you can do zero down. The philosophy was not enough people are buying homes, so if we make the 20% down to 0% down, more people didn't have to build up the money just so they can buy a house. Great. Fixing a problem now, consequences later. Well, people, what's called like, they know that people don't need any money for, well, when it comes to banks, people don't need 20% down. People are, I'm not trying to be mean, but people who can't afford to get that 20% down probably aren't going to be good house repayment loan repairs. So to compensate for that, loans go up, house prices go up. It's a kind of a kicking the can down the road. I'm not saying it's, as obviously I lean center right. I'm not saying it's a bad philosophy. I just think that it's relied on too much. Now, again, I do have a bias, obviously. I just stated that. When it comes to right-leaning, Republican kind of policy, especially now, you can see it heavily with President Trump's policies. We're going to set up a system where we can succeed in the future. The problem is, it's nice, the idea is nice, like we're going to set up the systems for a better future. The problem is, we're going to feel the pain now. So as opposed to Democratic policies where you'll feel the pain later, or for Republican policies, you're going to feel the pain now. It's kind of like the concept of going to the gym. The whole no pain, no gain. Problem is, you can't have too much pain. And you do.
Hey man, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I just tore my bicep on the preacher curl.
Yeah, you see,
Why?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
my, oh,
No pain, no gain.
don't bring it up. I've
what?
seen. It's so weird seeing the muscle just snap underneath skin. Oh man, I don't like it. Or
Hey man, no pain, no gain.
Or people who
pain and no gain.
or people who what's called underestimate the leg press, where you lean on your back,
their knee backwards.
Oh, not good. You know what I mean? So, but granted, I'm 30 years old, so I don't have much experience. I don't know what that pain threshold is. Personally, I think it's too much right now. We're about to go to war. Not just, go to war. Congress declares war. President Trump has sent a lot of military members over. Talks of more boots on the ground. That is resources taken from the United States to the military. So prices are going to go up there. This is a war over oil and energy usage. That's 20% of the world's energy uses. Prices have just now gone up again. Now, we are going to force... you took out the loans. You know what I mean? You took out the loans. It's not like you were told you were never going to have to pay it, ever. Well, Joe Biden's administration, we're going to exclude that part. You know what I mean? You grew up knowing you had to pay back the loans. But now we're going to force... what was it, 40 plus million Americans to continue paying those loans and garnishing 9 million of those Americans' income by at least 15%. While I do think, again, pretty anti-war, while I do think if we're going to get into conflict with Iran, we need to, go big or go home. I don't think this much is necessary. At least when we just talked about the student loan thing. Like, I feel like after you can't predict how long these wars are going to be. We were in Iraq for like 20 years. But how do I put this? I think the problem is we should have gotten our energy situations sorted out before we told the U.S. population that you're going to be garnishing your wages, or we will be garnishing your wages. Again, I think it's a good policy that people are paying back their loans, but I think we're doing too much right now. Thoughts?
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so
I don't know. The oil stuff is, I don't know. I feel like a lot of that stuff is still developing. I know that the prices are hitting in a lot of places. I don't know how long it's going to stick around. I've been seeing some stuff about the price of oil tanking and some due to some unknown reason. I don't know how true that is. But yeah, I don't know. This war just feels like a very foolish decision.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, oh yeah, we're calling the bluff with NATO. It's like, but this was like maybe not the way to do that. This is like,
Yeah. I mean,
man, if you succeed in properly calling their bluff, it's like a trying to go with a good. It's like it's kind of like testing your insurance policy by convincingly burning your house down. Like, sure, they paid out and you got away with it, but also you just burnt your house down.
Yeah.
Sure, it might get rebuilt in the future, but your premiums are still gonna go up. You're still gonna have to deal with a whole bunch of like crazy fallout. Like, good job, you got away with it. The insurance company that thought that they could get one over on you and they would never have to pay out your arson, your home insurance. You really showed them, man.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're living in a hotel for the next, with your parents or wherever for like the next, 5 to 10 months, 2 years, however long it takes to build your new house or rebuild your old house, and then also all of the stuff that you owned is gone. And like, sure, you're right, they might be able to replace some of the stuff, but like, did you keep an exact itemized list of receipts as to the specific items that you owned? Oh, well, you owned a toaster. You didn't tell us which toaster you owned.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get cheapo toaster. Or, oh, you had a like irreplaceable family heirloom that broke. Well,
we
too
can't
bad.
buy it.
We don't have. Yeah, we can't buy you an irreplaceable family heirloom, big dog. Like, even if you succeed, you're still failing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. Is like this was maybe the wrong avenue to test this in.
Yeah, I thought.
I don't know. Personal opinion that this all feels like a pretty foolish thing, and the conspiracy part of my brain is like, Epstein files distraction. Oh
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly, I thought we were on a good track with like getting our oil refinery back from Venezuela. Like, obviously, the deal with the Saudi Arabia was up. They're not going to. They're not trading with the U.S. dollar, and other countries are bidding for it. So I thought us, because I heard, again, scrolling TikTok and X, so take it with as many grains of salt as you need. But I've heard that the amount of oil being produced in Venezuela is almost on par with the amount being produced in Saudi Arabia. At least, like, whatever. So I'm like, okay, then we've just created. When we talked about this, when it comes to like, putting tariffs on other countries, I think we should have had our own infrastructure first before we implemented the tariffs. That way there's at least some competition, as opposed to just putting tariffs with no competition. So then the companies outside of the U.S. would just increase their prices because there's no competition. In my mind, we've just created our own internal infrastructure with Venezuela. This is something we've already put taxpayer dollars for. We just took it back. Fair. And if we can believe certain TikToks or whatever, the people of Venezuela are happy about it. Whatever. Uh, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Conspiracy theory brain. I think they're trying to destabilize that area so that people will have to, not just a trade oil in U.S. dollars, but b have to buy it from us.
Yeah.
If I'm, which that was my original theory. But if that's the case, why would you call out, other countries of NATO to help you secure that area? Because if Iran wants to cut off 20% of the world's oil, all the U.S. has to do is here's 20% that they've taken from you
Yep.
at
Well, I mean,
equal price.
what's that old adage? The trick that rich people know, poor people do not, is that rich people never spend their own money. So
Yeah.
it might be like, well, why are we sending in these other nations? Why are we having NATO do it? Because why would we do it when we can get them to do it? Like, why would I
Yeah,
spend
yeah.
my military resources when I could just have people who are, one, closer to the region, two, more affected by it, and three, have an incentive to do it? Just do it for me.
Yeah,
Why would
yeah.
I try to put out my own house fire when I have the fire department?
Yeah, so again, that was, if we're gonna get conspiratorial here, that was my thing. But I guess calling out NATO and now 20 nations are saying they're gonna help us kind of threw my theory out the window. So we'll continue on from there.
Speaking
Uh,
of Strait of Hormuz stuff,
yeah. Oh no,
Iran. Oh,
oh no, sorry. You continue. I had an ad.
oh, no, go.
No, no, it was an ad. So I had to click off of it. You were saying, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. I was like,
well,
I
actually
was like,
here.
oh, damn, we got sponsors already. All right.
Oh, no, no. Actually, we're gonna go to the airlines thing because that one
Oh, all
is
right.
like, okay. So, United Airlines to cut 5% flights as fuel costs surge. The United Airlines announced on Friday it would cut approximately 5% of its scheduled flights for the second and third quarters of 2026. As CEO Scott Kirby, like
Mhm.
the the
Yeah, it's a
game.
real name.
Never would have guessed. I guess, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're right. Just, it threw me off. I didn't read this article beforehand. Told employees in a staff memo that jet fuel prices have more than doubled in 3 weeks and that the airline is now planning for oil to reach $175 a barrel and remain above $100 through the end of 2027. Oh, that's what he thinks. Oh, well, he runs the airline, not me. The cuts target off-peak routes, The cuts target off-peak routes, red-eye flights, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday services during the second and third quarters. With one, I feel like there should have been a comma there. With 1 point capacity reduction at Chicago O'Hare once an FAA process concludes. Tel uh, Tel Aviv and Dubai services remain suspended. Kirby said the plan is to restore the full schedule in autumn and that nothing changes about long-term aircraft delivery planes or 2027 capacity. Kirby said demand remains at record highs. The 10 biggest booked revenue weeks in United's history were the last 10 weeks, given that the airline room to raise fares and partially offset the fuel cost surge. Jet fuel has risen more than 60% from pre-war levels, with a Boeing 737-800 that cost 17,000 to fill the day before the Friday. I'm to fill the day before the Friday 28th strikes costing more than this. Oh, there's no way this was written in English first. There's no way. There's no. Okay, we don't need it. Okay, so anyways, yeah. 20% of the world's energy disappears, so naturally prices go up. Now, they did say they cut 5% of their scheduled crafts. This is obviously because scarcity. Jet fuel is a scarce resource, and as the price goes up, this will affect other aspects. When the cost of a scarce resource exceeds what customers are willing to pay for the final product, that activity is no longer economically feasible. So, with the prices of, and it's stated here, jet fuel prices have gone up 60%. Uh, um, that means they're gonna no United Airlines is not gonna eat that up. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
60%, no, they're not gonna eat that. They're gonna pass that on to everybody else. With
Mm-hmm.
everybody else, they mean the people who are purchasing the tickets. Now, that's what they would do. So, but they had two options. They had two options: A, increase the price of tickets, or B, don't sell the tickets, which is what they did with 5% of their flights moving forward. That generally means that the cost to run the flights in their mind would exceed the amount of people that are willing to pay for it. So, now, granted, as it stated earlier when I couldn't read, the cuts target off peak routes and red eye flight. I don't know what red eye flights are. And then flights from Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which I think is gonna that's gonna upset some people. Upset some things because usually people who are looking for discounts go for Tuesday, Wednesday flights. So now they're gonna be forced to compete with people who fly on Thursdays and Fridays and Sundays. So that's gonna be rough. Now, excuse me, basic economics here. They are cutting those flights. That means they are going to take those resources that they don't think we're going to actually produce any sort of profit for them. They're going to move those resources to the flights that they already have scheduled or that they believe are already going to produce a profit for them. Which is, it's business. It is what it is. I think. Now, granted, that this also assumes that other airlines will be doing the same thing, because they could also be cutting these 5% of these flights. That way, they don't have to increase the prices of their other flights. That way, they can still compete with other airlines. Now, let's say other airlines start to follow in their footsteps. Even though they've cut 5% of their flights, prices, in my mind, are still going to go up. Mainly because supply has gone down, demand has remained relatively the same, if not increased, because now everyone has to bid for these flights on specific days. And if you have 10 people willing to pay $10, but you only have 9 seats, what do? Well, you increase the price to see who's going to drop off first, and if people are going to keep raising how much they're willing to pay, well, and that's business. They're going to raise their prices to see how much they can get out of this. Now, granted, jet fuel prices are going up. They have to compensate for that. But I think they're compensating for that with the 5% cuts. So the price increase is just them forcing everyone to be like, hey, you want this seat on this flight? Someone's willing to pay $200 for it. What are you willing to pay? You know what I mean? So it
Mm-hmm.
forces people into a funnel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what I think. What
Yeah.
else? Any thoughts?
Um, I know air travel's been really rough.
Oh yeah, with the TSA stuff.
And
Yeah, I saw that.
with all the TSA stuff, and then on top of that, your flight might have gotten canceled because they're not running that airline anymore. Like, hopefully, air travel doesn't go the way of the dodo. But it is not a good time to be in the airplane industry.
Or
So
need
yeah,
the
like
airplane
this,
industry.
yeah, right? You mean everybody? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a yeah. The cost that's going to get passed on to the consumer is really the big part. So not only is flying harder because you're going to spend 4 hours in line at the airport, and that your flight may not exist anymore, but any flight that you could get on is now 60% likely story. This is also, I imagine, it's gonna be another one of those things where it's like during COVID, where companies way hiked the prices even above inflation, even above scarcity, because they knew they could get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so your flight isn't just 60% more expensive; it's 120% more expensive. And yeah, not to mention your purchasing power is even lower. So like what 100 grand is now is what $75,000 was back in 2020. You've lost a quarter of your purchasing power. It's 120. It's twice as expensive as it should be. It's already it's double a 60% markup and may not even exist. Like it's just it's a bad situation to be in.
Yeah, I think the main problem is now. Granted, this is based on now. Okay, so before I continue this, um, this report says right now it's just United Airlines. We're not including Delta, all that stuff. Okay. However, there's a book I really like. I bring it up every now and then. It's called The Myth of Capitalism, and it talks about which it's not what you think. It talks about it. We need more capitalism to combat some of the stuff we're seeing now. But I think, based on how this book operates and what it tells me, and I believe it, I do, other airlines are going to follow suit. And because here they've already cut flights from Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, we're going to force everyone to bid for flights on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Fridays, which are generally the busiest times. So because you have more people funneling towards those days, prices are going to go up. United Airlines is going to do this. I can't, assuming this works well, you know what I mean? Because as you stated, they're going to
Hmm.
upcharge their upcharges. If United Airlines sees significant business, why wouldn't the others do that? They could even apply the same thing because they all use the same resources. They still need jet fuel, they still need pilots, they still need stewards, whatever. So they're going to be like, times are tough, guys. We're going to cut out our Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday flights. So now they're all going to upcharge. They're upcharged for their flights. Your ticket prices will practically double overnight. And because, based on the book, the Myth of Capitalism, it basically says that these companies work at like an oligarchy or like a cartel. They all work together. They all get together and be like, hey, we won't lower our prices if you don't lower yours. So now these companies are like, we don't need to lower our prices. We don't need we don't need to compete with competition because as long as United Airlines and Delta and whatever, as long as they don't lower it, I don't have to lower it. And because people need to fly, either for work or for pleasure, sorry, for business or for pleasure, they'll pay it anyways. So, and I think the only like this is a I have an idea of like prices where they're at now. They might fluctuate a little lower, but they're only ever going to go up because, as again, based on the book, so feel free to take it with a grain of salt. I do like the book though. I will give it a 9 out of 10. But if because the book states that there needs to be more competition. Essentially, you have a monopoly that's split between four companies, more or less. So as long as they decide, like in a cartel, they're not going to undercut each other, there's no competition. So your prices will always go up. Your quality will probably decrease while maintaining the same prices, or your quality will remain the same while increasing prices because, well, if Tyson's going to increase their chicken, Heritage Farm should probably also increase their chicken because there's no competition. There's no need to be like, I really want these people's, services. Well, I want their money, so I should lower the price of my services kind of things. You know what I mean? Now, granted, that is
Hmm.
stating United Airlines is not the only one that does this. Delta, I can't think of other airlines right now, but they follow suit. Now, if only United Airlines does this, that's a them issue. Because if we predict that, you know, your ticket price is double essentially, and let's say Delta was like, we're not doing that, we'll be a halfway decent company. We'll probably eat some of the cost,
but will keep your prices relatively the same, if not, just a little bit more expensive. Then there's the competition. Again, that whole tangent I went on is on, other countries doing that. Not countries, companies following United Airlines is no, what was it? Follows their suit, which I guess might depend on how well this, what's called, this works for United Airlines. I don't know. Actually, I've thought of a counterpoint. Maybe it'll be like an Aldi's thing, where the reason why their prices are so low is because they're only open a certain, a handful of hours a day. That way, they don't have to pay for services that need to be subsidized. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. I didn't think about that. I just assumed these giant corporations were evil.
Low-key.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Obviously, I can't predict the future. This is not financial advice. Do your own research. But I don't know. Me saying that seems like a cop out. That's like saying this coin's gonna land on either heads or tails. So either everything's gonna go up or United Airlines will go down. But that's if they take inspiration from all of these. However, with the price of things going up, we do have this article from ABC. Iran war halts Qatar helium output, threatening global tech supply chains. Da-da-da. London. Iran's attack this week on Qatar's natural gas export facility threatens to disrupt not just world energy markets, but also global technology supply chains, because the helium it produces is crucial for a range of advanced industries. Advanced industries. Damn. Best known as the gas that makes party balloons float, helium is also a key input in chip making, space rockets, and medical imaging. Qatar supplies a third of the world's helium, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, but the nation had to halt production shortly after the war erupted 3 weeks ago. The largest Iranian strikes against the region's energy production infrastructure have added to supply worries, with Qatar's state-owned gas company saying it would crimp helium exports by 14%. Here's a deeper look at helium's industrial role. Helium is a byproduct from natural gas production. When it's blah blah blah. Qatar, which sits on the world's biggest natural gas field, produces 30% of global helium supply. Helium is produced. We're not scientists here. Makes us. Let's see. After Ras Laffan was hit again by more Iranian strikes on Wednesday and Thursday, Qatar Gas report extensive damage that would take years to repair and cut annual helium exports by 40%. Quote, "It makes the story worse," unquote, said Phil Kornbluth, president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting. Quote, "Your best case scenario would be you're back producing some helium in 6 weeks or something like that. As it looks right now, that's highly unlikely," unquote. But spot trading only accounts for about 2% of total market in normal times, he said. Helium is a thinly traded commodity and is mostly sold through long-term contracts. Still, contract prices, quote, "could go up a lot," unquote. Kornbluth said, quote, "There's a lot of room for price increase if there is an extended outage," unquote. Kornbluth said the storage hasn't hit yet, but helium containers that would have been filled when the conflict erupted at the start of March would have still taken several weeks to arrive in Asia. Quote, "Nobody runs out of helium yet, but there's a few weeks out when the shortage really hits," unquote. Kind of like earlier when I talked about like people were complaining that gas companies were charging you more money for oil that they bought months ago. No, they're
Yep.
charging you more money for oil that they're buying now.
Yep.
Things take time, but
Helium is essential for manufacturing semiconductors, including the cutting-edge chips used for artificial intelligence models produced in Asian fabrication plants. It's a great it's a it, blah. It's great at conducting or transferring heat, making it ideal for rapid cooling. Chip makers use it to cool wafers, the disk of silicon printed on tiny electronic circuits. Helium is used during the etching process when material that's been deposited on a wafer is scraped away to form transistor structures, said Jacob. Said Jacob. I'm not going to say his last name, an analyst at Georgetown University Center for Security and Emerging Technology. During the etching process, quote, you really want to maintain a constant temperature over that wafer. And in order to do that, you need to be able to draw heat away from the wafer that's been being processed, unquote, said Jacob. Quote, helium is an excellent thermal conductor, and so fabs will blow helium over the back of the wafer in order to speed heat removal and keep heat removal consistent, unquote. Under current semiconductor manufacturing processes, there's no viable replacement for helium to cool wafers, said Jean Huang Lee, a professor of semiconductor devices in South Korea's Sangmyang University. The medical industry uses helium to cool superconducting magnets, powering magnetic resonance imaging machines. Oh my god, I couldn't think of that. And the space industry uses helium to purge rocket fuel tanks, a demand that is expected to grow because more frequent launches by companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin expect your Tesla prices to go up. Helium atomic properties make it tricky to store and transport. In gas form, helium's tiny molecules can easily escape containers by leaking through even the smallest gaps. I mean, I guess. Like, I say that, but, like, that's not really, I mean, I guess it is. Never mind. Ignore me. Helium is typically chilled by Qatar's gas company into liquid form and stored in insulated containers for transport through the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz. I'm too redneck for this. The specialized containers can store helium for 35 to 48 days. Any longer, and they start warming up, letting the helium transform into gas that escapes through pressure release valves. About 200 of those containers are stuck in the Middle East. They cost about $1 million each, so there aren't a lot of extra ones sitting around elsewhere. It's going to take a fair amount of time to get these containers out of Qatar and to get them somewhere else where they might be able to be filled with helium. The United States is the biggest producer. The United States is the biggest producer, according to 81, accounting for 81 million cubic meters last year. Qatar, Algeria, and Russia are the other major producers of Russia. I'm telling you, man, that tinfoil hat. We're doing this on purpose.
Right?
We are destabilizing that region. That way, people rely on us. Now, granted, Algeria and Russia, those are also, especially Russia, those are competitors. But still, you know what I mean? Ah, man.
Mm-hmm.
If I had $1, especially with all the other conspiracy theories coming out right now, aliens.gov. But Russian suppliers are under states and European Union sanctions. Under states? Okay. USGS estimates the United States has 8.5 billion cubic meters of recoverable helium in geologic reservoirs, while the rest of the world has 31.3 billion cubic meters. So, okay, that's the rest of the world. So, we're essentially 1/4 or like 1/5 of the world. Okay. The war highlights that sprawling global supply chains that underpin South Korea's semiconductor industry, which has seen a surge in global demand for its chips amid the AI boom. Fitch Rating said in a report this week that the country, home to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, the world's largest memory chip makers, is particularly vulnerable to supply shortages because it imports about 65% of its helium from Qatar. Well, guess where they're going to be getting it now?
Helium is among 14 semiconductor supply chain materials the Seoul government has flagged for monitoring due to heavy vulnerability to the war. Quote, even disruptions affecting just a handful of materials could destabilize the entire semiconductor manufacturing process, as each stage of production depends on the previous one, unquote, Lee said. I get that, but that's like most factories. Like, I worked in a factory for like a year and a half, and that's how it works. You go station 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Hmm.
but you could say that about practically anything. Still, a full-blown helium crisis is unlikely, expert says. Well, yeah, because they'd be buying it from us. In the event of a shortage, Kornbluth said the helium industry allocates supplies based on importance, so critical industries such as chip making and medical would be at the front line. And then, yeah, that's allocated of scarce resources that have alternative uses. That's normal. And because helium is a small part of the overall production cost of a semiconductor, it's likely that chip fabs, quote, will be willing to pay higher price, unquote, to secure supplies because they'll give it to you. You and I know that, especially when they, what was it, Nvidia was like, we're gonna stop. Wait, was it Nvidia? They said that we're gonna produce much less GPUs or RAM for consumers and more for uh, AI companies and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So we felt that. We gamers, we felt that. Um, let's see. Yeah, that again. I'm scrolling to the top.
Big concern with the whole helium shortage slash potential transfer is the AI bubble is a big driving
Yeah.
factor in a lot of the economy right now, and a lot of businesses are sort of banking on the idea that AI will be able to replace entry-level white-collar work, and they'll be able to lay off large majorities of people. And a lot of companies have started doing that and moving in that direction, despite studies coming out saying that productivity isn't going up and all this other stuff. Um, if that bubble pops because the helium supply dries up, or it becomes much more difficult to access, driving up the cost, which then makes an already unprofitable thing that is already incredibly expensive even more unprofitable and incredibly expensive. We might just see like the entire AI bubble just go up in flames, like just boop, gone.
Yeah.
And then we move forward, and everyone like you just watch like the Silicon Valley crash again, basically.
Essentially, yeah. Um, man, I didn't even think about that part, especially with the whole. Because we're expecting that.
And a whole
I
bunch of investment basically also goes up in flames, which is the bad part.
Yeah, that's the bad part. And you and I already think the bubble's gonna pop, but I didn't think it was gonna be this soon. I'll be honest. Because we just got a bunch of reports of people being laid off. I remember seeing some article I was passing up on Yahoo Finance about people are more worried than ever that AI is going to be taking their jobs, which depends on the job. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, I am telling you, if I was a conspiracy theorist, like one of those hardcore ones, because I believe in Bigfoot, but like this just it just seems like everything
Well,
is starting to
lines up
line
very
up.
conveniently.
Yes, yeah, very convenient that the U.S. dollar wasn't going to be traded in Saudi Arabia anymore. Well, that sucks. Oh no, uh, you all need helium to make your semiconductor chips. Ah, that sucks. Too bad we have to bomb them. Oh, by the way, it turns out we have a lot of resources on this side of the world. How about this? How about
Hey.
this? Here, well, how about this, okay? We're going to be nice. We're going to help you all out. Just buy from us. Here's US dollars to spend it with.
True.
Bro, that's
I'm pretty convinced.
I'm convinced, man. At first I'm like, that's a fun theory. Now I'm like, maybe I should be hired. Maybe I'll run for president. Hell no. But my worry is, again, I didn't know this at the time because I didn't read all the way through this article. But I didn't know when I made this note. I didn't know that the U.S. was the world's largest producer of with helium, with us making about uh, either a fourth, about between like a fourth and a fifth of the world's helium. And as stated, Qatar says that this disruption could halt about 18% of the world's helium. So that means they're going to be more reliant on us. Now, how should I put this? Prices will go up, which sucks because RAM prices are already high. We already have a lot of people banking on AI, as you stated. So they're banking on AI. Well, the price of to make these AI devices essentially, they're gonna go up. When the prices of resources go up, companies, the direct buyers of those resources, those companies usually they don't go down, but people don't have a higher view of it. So, and especially if the AI bubble pops, there will be a panic selling, blah blah blah. So, and I know that we're trying to compete with China when it comes to AI stuff because they don't respect patents or whatever, whatever the case is, whatever Trump is stating, whatever. But if the AI, my problem is like I wonder if the AI bubble pops, does it pop for the whole world? I mean, I have to imagine it would, because obviously we're not the only people in the world who buy semiconductor chips.
Yeah. Like if it's even unprofitable in China. Like it's an arms race that may not result in anything use. Like this is sort of like the proposition of AI. Here's sort of the three possible futures. Possible future one, it plateaus super hard and basically cannot stop hallucinating, cannot stop having problems, and is effectively a tool that's worse than a search engine in just about every way other than legibility. Um, and basically just gets slowly phased out in technical usage because it just doesn't do the job well enough. Option two is like we create like a infinitely replicable 100 and 15 IQ guy that you can kind of just deploy on small stuff, but ultimately doesn't replace any like major human like pursuits or anything, but is like a nice addendum. And these are like the two best possible outcomes. Because the third possible outcome is like, oh, by the way, guys, we've created the singularity and it's going to kill us all. Whoops. We knew it was a possibility and we figured that maybe getting a 115 IQ guy is like low key kind of worth it. And it's like, well, what were the probabilities? Well, it was like
Well, on
5%,
call sheet it said
5%, and 90%. Tell me that isn't ordered. It is. Yeah, it was in that order. That what? Huh? Yeah, but like think of the money we could have made with the like 150 IQ guy on a 90% chance to create the kill all human singularity. Like when you put it like that,
But don't put it
that's
like
yeah,
that.
but that yeah, but don't say it like that, bro. There's a good chance that we will create the most useful deployable tool ever known. Kind of.
Maybe.
And again, up against a 90% chance of creating the kill all humans machine. Well, I mean, I guess there was like a 0.01% chance of like we make the solve all of the world's problems forever machine. So, there was that too, I guess. Were you trying for that one? No. So, wait, you weren't trying for I mean, we kind of hoped it'd be like a side effect. A side effect. Yeah. Low key, we were kind of trying for the kill all humans thing though. What? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I
there's a
lied about
lot
all
of
this stuff
you.
earlier.
I need
We
y'all
were
to stop
trying to
going
build
to
the kill all
college.
humans machine, and we were trying to do it on purpose because we thought it might spare us, and that's why we built bunkers and stuff. Sorry, guys.
Well, apparently the
Uh,
bunkers, like bunker companies, are like popping off right now.
mhm.
So do with that information what you will. That's gonna suck.
This is not legal or financial advice.
Yeah, not legal financial advice. Do your own research. We have our own property. Uh, let's see. I mean, that's gonna suck. I mean, not. I mean, obviously from an economic standpoint, for sure. But like, man, like computer stuff was hard. I was like expensive, and I was really looking forward to that Steam machine, that Gabe Cube or whatever. I was
Hmm.
really looking forward to it, and now all this hits. This sucks. But I guess we'll see how it goes. Well, well, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.